What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Coin Rocket YouTube channel, where we are now boarding for one-way trips to the moon. So if you'd like to join us, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you there. So let's talk about centralized organizations versus decentralized organizations. What does that mean? What's the difference, and how can you tell which one is which? So centralized organizations can be thought of as a hierarchical decision-making structure. What that means is it's a hierarchy, okay? So there's people above other people, where all decisions are handled strictly at the top or executive level, okay? So people lower on the chain, like managers and employees, are limited in their decision-making, and they can rarely implement any new ideas without getting approval first of people higher up in the hierarchy. Even decisions made day to day are generally decided by upper level executives. Okay, policies are put in place to ensure that the rest of the company follows the direction of the executives. The benefits to a centralized organization are that you know exactly what to expect, and all of the decision-making processes are kind of streamlined, and there's no debate over, what is going to happen, and there's no kind of need for consensus. It's basically just a game of listening to whatever the authority tells you, and then as they say goes, and that's the end of the story. Okay? So with a centralized style organization, everything has to go through the one central authority. But what that means, some of the negatives with the centralized organizational structure are that there's also a central point of failure. Okay, so if, for example, the central authority, well, let's use the example of an executive, right? If an executive gets sick, then they have to take a day off, and then people are left without a central authority to make decisions for them, and then maybe they have to start either delegating decisions, which is a form of decentralization, or what they do is they can just wait until the executive comes back to continue with whatever they were working on. So you should be looking at some images of what a centralized, decentralized, and distributed network looks like. So as you can see with the centralized network, all of the nodes must go through the center node in order to communicate with each other. To go from any one point to another, you must go through the central authority. Okay? And so that central authority has complete control of what all of the interactions are between those nodes. So in a more practical sense, if we take a look at what this looks like in real life, okay, you can use the example of PayPal or credit card companies. So when you make a payment to someone, when you have a transaction, you have to go through PayPal or a credit card company or a bank. Okay, and what that means is the bank or PayPal or whoever is in control gets to decide whether or not your transaction goes through. Okay, they can decide to freeze your account. They can decide to stop sending funds to your account. They can decide to stop allowing you to send funds. They can decide to stop allowing other people to send you funds. And it really doesn't have to be for a good reason. It could be politically motivated. It could be some kind of regulation that, maybe you agree or disagree with the regulation, but it doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree with it, because you have to go through the central authority, and whatever they say goes. Compare that with a decentralized structure, okay, where everyone is on an equal footing. And as you can see, there are multiple places where you can get from one to another. So if you want to get from one point to another, there's no particular route that you have to go through. Okay, you can think of it like driving down the street and going to different locations. So if you want to go to the, if you want to drive from Florida to Washington, D.C., okay, there are thousands of different paths that you could take. You don't have to follow any one particular path. Okay, there's no one specific road that you have to take. With a centralized system, it would be similar to only taking the main road, and you cannot veer off of the main roads. Okay, but with a decentralized structure, you can go any way you want, and it doesn't matter if it's, you know, the least efficient path or the most efficient path. There's no way for anyone to tell you which path you have to take, and there's no way for anyone to prevent you from taking that path, because you could just go a different direction instead of whichever direction that person is in control of. Now, the positives of a decentralized system are, of course, that you don't have to go through a central authority, so it can be completely peer-to-peer, which means you can transfer, in the case of cryptocurrency, value from one person to another without the need of a middleman. You can have a transaction, a monetary transaction, without having to go through PayPal or a bank or somebody else. Okay, and this is really important because let's just take a specific example of something that has happened before. Okay, WikiLeaks was accepting donations, and their payment provider, PayPal, decided to stop. They decided to freeze their accounts and stop accepting donations, okay, to WikiLeaks. So WikiLeaks was unable to collect donations through the normal method because PayPal was politically motivated to stop allowing people to send money to them. If you're using a payment system like Bitcoin, or especially like a private system like Monero, another benefit to decentralization is that the people on the network, because there is no central authority that's above everyone else in order to make decisions, all the people on the network are allowed to make those decisions. So it's more of a democratically influenced system where basically whatever everyone agrees upon is what's going to be allowed to happen. And, you know, regardless of whether everyone agrees on it, you can still send, for example, transactions from one individual to another, but the entire network itself is maintained democratically at a larger level. However, with decentralization comes a lot of complexity and uncertainty, not only because of that democratically influenced decision-making process and for the need of some type of consensus mechanism, but also because it's a more complex system where there's not necessarily one individual authority that you can go to just get the one answer, right? So there are multiple paths, and it's not always clear which path you should take. So another benefit of decentralization is that there is no central point of failure. So if any individual on the network goes down, the network still stays up. There's no central point of failure where you could take the entire system down by taking some person or some organization in particular down. You would have to take down basically the entire network. With a central point of failure, all you have to do is take down the central point of failure, and then the entire network is down. It doesn't matter how many customers you have. It doesn't matter how many people you have that want to use your network. Okay? If the central point is down, then the entire network is functionally down. Whereas with a decentralized system, because you can take multiple paths to get to the same place, losing one or two paths, right? Even if some of the points go down, you can still get to wherever you want to go through whichever option you choose to take. Decentralization also helps remove the risk of corruption, because with a centralized organization, all you have to do is bribe or control or silence or influence in some way the central party that's in charge of making all of the decisions for the rest of the network. And then it's all suddenly you who controls the entire network because you've corrupted the central authority. Whereas with a decentralized system, there is no one to corrupt. You would have to corrupt the entire system, which really wouldn't even be corruption then if the entire system was corrupted, right? If everyone agrees on it, it's not really corruption. That's just the consensus. So something I'd like to mention is that decentralization is not necessarily something new. It's actually something kind of old and something that we're familiar with in these technological revolutions. So for example, when YouTube and Amazon and Uber and a lot of these new tech companies were formed, what they were also doing, apart from introducing a new technology, was decentralizing portions of their industry that were previously centralized. So Uber cut out the middlemen of taxi driver services, and now what they have is a decentralized, or a slightly more decentralized than it previously was, system of drivers who are working for themselves, who freelance and are almost like volunteers who decide to drive whenever they choose to, and they give the Uber platform its value because they choose to. So what YouTube does is it has a large pool of content creators, none of which are employees of YouTube, okay? They just create all of the content for YouTube, and they're the reason why YouTube is successful. So they've basically decentralized all of the value in their actual company to other people. The same thing with Uber, right? Uber doesn't really have drivers that are employees. They just have a decentralized network of people who choose to freelance drive whenever they want. With blockchain, the entire system, including the central authority, is being decentralized. So not only does Amazon sell a lot of products of their own, but they also have a lot of individual sellers who sell things on their website. And again, that's a form of slight decentralization compared to the old model like Walmart has, where it's just Walmart. They didn't previously allow other people to sell using Walmart as a platform. Okay, with Amazon, individual sellers can use Amazon as a platform to sell their own products by signing up under the Amazon website and opening their own store, just like having an eBay store, right? So there's something that you'll notice with a lot of these new tech companies is that what they've done is they've just taken a centralized system and added slightly more decentralization to it. The way that society is progressing now with blockchain technology, decentralization is going even further to remove even the owners of a company and just making them into essentially non-profit, completely volunteer teams that are forming foundations to have completely open source projects, right, that are maintained on a blockchain that's completely run by individuals that are maintaining the network completely out of their own free will without having to work for a company or be under anyone's thumb. So I hope this video was helpful and gave you kind of some insight into centralization, decentralization, and where I personally think technology is going, with more towards decentralization in the future. And it'll be interesting to see how far decentralization will go with blockchain technology and potentially even future technologies that could be integrated with blockchain technology, and things like the Internet of Things and artificial intelligence that will automate a lot of things that older methods used to rely on central authorities for, that technology can now decentralize in order to make a more fair and open system that works for everyone instead of just a few people at the top. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.